Hi, and welcome to the Pride Road Architects podcast. I'm Lisa Raynes, and each episode I'll talk to people who interest me in the world of architecture and business. So join me and fellow lions and lionesses as we explore architecture in the den. So hi everyone, welcome to Architecture in the Den with me, your host Lisa Raynes, and I'd like to introduce you to Julia. So Julia, would you just like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, hi Lisa, it's lovely to see you. My name is Julia, and my background is in quantity surveying and construction project management, and I ran Star Projects, which is a consultancy focusing on helping private clients, homeowners, in the refurbishment renovation journey.
Amazing. So we have a variety of listeners. They could be architects, they could be sort of business people, entrepreneurs. They could also be students thinking about whether to go into architecture or into other associated industries. A lot of people don't know what QSing, what a QS does. So what does a QS do?
Well, it's a great question, to be fair. I mean, traditionally QS is kind of an accountant's background, right? So QS, or a cost consultant, it's a person dealing mainly with budgets, providing quotes, providing all sorts of cost related elements. But these days, or at least in the industry that we work in, both of us, it's not really that much of that anymore. QSs working, or quantity surveyors working with developers, they tend to put together appraisals for projects where they establish whether it's worth doing the job at all and what sort of profit is being expected at the end.
Excellent. And where are you based?
So I'm actually in London, northwest London, in Rickmansworth, but yeah, we cover pretty much most of London within M25 and neighbouring counties.
Excellent. I must introduce you to Shwara, actually. Right, and get you in to have a chat with us. Cool. So we met, I think, during lockdown on Clubhouse, didn't we?
Yeah.
So
I think so. We've met a few times on Clubhouse, then we've met on Facebook, I think, a couple of times as well. So there's a few spaces, but yeah.
I think this is the power of online and social networking. And we were just talking before about Tuxa Aratorore, and how have you met her?
I've never met her in live, like person, face to face. We have come across each other quite a few times on social media. I think we've spoken once on Facebook as well. And she said her showroom is exactly on King's Road, and that was at the time when I was actually working on a showroom for a joinery contractor exactly on King's Road down in Chelsea. So I popped down and I went to have a look. I think she wasn't there at the time, but yeah, it's kind of interesting how small the world is.
It is. I think once you're an entrepreneur and you're kind of trying to get out there, and then sort of it starts to become quite a small group, sort of female entrepreneurs in the building industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, it's almost like we all have quite an open mindset. There are those people who are just like, yeah, this is my world, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I want to do it, and like have that tunnel vision where they don't really allow the outside world to interrupt. Whereas we are, like you are, Toxis, we're all trying to be out there, putting ourselves in, out. And that's an interesting, perspective where when you look at for other people who are doing similar things to you.
And I think it's about, you kind of have to be quite brave to do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think, I don't know if you find you ever get any self-doubt in putting yourself out there.
Yeah, so many times. I mean, to be fair, it's not only that, but if you're putting yourself out there, like everything you do, everything you say is actually based very much on your mood. If you're happy and if you're at your best, you can be like the superstar Beyonce, presenting yourself the best. But if you're kind of in that space of, oh, why am I here? What am I doing? Why did I come? What do I say? Where do I go from here? Yeah, it's kind of becoming twice as hard.
Mm.
So yeah, when I have those self-doubt moments, I usually go very, very quiet on everybody.
Have you got any advice about how to kind of manage that?
How to manage that? I mean, to be honest, I've never mastered the management of that, and I only see that these times come and go. So my
Mm.
my only advice is, sometimes just follow it and cut yourself some slack, give yourself some time,
Mm.
and just if you don't feel at your best, if you have these self-doubt moments, just take some time off,
Mm.
do something for yourself and just go back to whatever it is that you actually can. I usually in those moments go back to simply focusing on my clients, focusing on the projects, and just pushing the world from inside, if you know what I mean. I usually go back to doing what I know how to do best. So, managing from inside out. Whereas when that time passes and I'm back in my, winning mindset, I can go out and then share what I've learned from those times and how much fun it was or how much I enjoyed it, and
Mm.
what are the things I would love to do different another time or something. So I usually just step down, go back to my safe zone, and then once the time is right again, then I'll go out from my little shell and bubble and just share it with the world.
What great advice. Yeah, I remember talking to Claire Nash about something similar, and she was talking about sort of in women, just following your cycle, and sort of each at different moments in your cycle, you kind of your strengths change. So certain times you're kind of more extrovert, and then certain times you kind of get more introvert, and then you can concentrate, use that time to concentrate on more detailed stuff.
100%. And
Yeah,
it's the
so
same with our personal life, right?
mm,
Stuff happens, um I don't know if you know, but my father is quite, yeah, terminally ill.
I'm
So
sorry to
it's
hear
a bit of a roller coaster over the last few years. And it's just, we're all human. There's only as much as we can all take in any one time, right? So I just usually put some sort of boundaries around me, and if I'm at my best, if I'm happy, if everything's okay in my world, I'm happy to go and share the happiness. But
that.
when I'm kind of at my lowest, I don't really want anybody to see me like
Mm. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I lost my dad nearly 18 months ago.
that. Yeah.
And um he was had a late diagnosis with cancer, and kind of just it all happened very, very quickly over 4 months. It was like, oh, and I was kind of like trying to be out there at the same time, and you're fronting the business, and you're fronting for me it was fronting the franchise business as well, and then had to put certain things in place as well to help me manage it, but no, it is pretty tough. And I
I
think there's a
know.
lot of kind of our age, our generation, kind of like losing parents and coming to terms with sort of handling parents as well, you know, caring issues and challenging issues with parents.
Exactly, and it's just something you can't really plan or prepare yourself for, right? It's not like, you know, you can put that in your diary. Okay, these are the 2 weeks I'm going to be off, and you know, I just need some headspace for me. I mean, with my father, it's been a roller coaster, because basically he's been diagnosed a brain cancer and given 6 months to live about 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So he's well past his expiry date. But basically in COVID, they found a tumor, some sort of something in his lungs, and because, you know, the whole C word has taken over the world and everybody was focusing on lungs for different reasons, he wasn't really diagnosed quickly enough. So now it's almost like he doesn't qualify for an operation anymore. So it's almost like we know it's coming, but at the same time there's this hope that, you know, it's been so long over what the doctors said from day one, that, you know, you kind of have that hope that it's going to be fine.
It's tough. I think we were similar as well. It was a late diagnosis due to COVID, and yeah, all I can say is you spend time with him and your family and keep your family close.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's definitely something I'm getting better on this year. One of my New Year's resolutions was I'm calling my mum every day, even though it's really draining sometimes and it takes a lot of my headspace. My mum can talk. Oh boy, she can talk. Yeah. If you wanted her on the podcast ever, you probably would never finish. But it's like you said, you know, you kind of realize that you might lose someone, and then you kind of want all these things that, you know, one day there might not be somebody on the other side of the phone. So I'd love to stay in touch, you know, talk to my parents as much as I can while I still can.
I think what I've learned sort of through the process and after the process is the skills that I've learned or have been given from my parents as well.
Yeah.
So it's quite a nice thing to do. But so many times I just catch myself talking just like my mum.
Yeah. Well, I'm totally different to my mum. So I'm usually like, I could never understand how my dad and my mum got together, because there's such opposites. Like, you cannot think about two completely different people.
Yeah.
So I'm probably more like my dad. I'm very much like my mum. So, you know, I never really thought of that up until I started, you know, my own business, and I started thinking, like, how did I get to where I am? But I'm from a construction family as well, right? My dad used to be an equivalent of a building control inspector. It's just in Poland, we don't really have building control. But he used to work on major commercial developments for stores and warehouses. So he was pretty much like an inspector checking on, you know, all sorts of building work there. And then my mum, she used to work in a construction company doing roads and bridges, and she was a construction buyer. So I still have a lot of, you know, the budgeting and mindset that my mum's got, like being very money aware. Whereas as a person, I'm 100% my dad.
That's fascinating. My dad was a builder's merchant. And my granddad on my mum's side was a builder and developer. So yeah, so it's in the blood.
Yeah, it's pretty much there. You can't run away from that.
So going back to sort of growing up, where did you grow up, and what's your journey into QSing?
Oh my God. I mean, to be fair, I was born in Poland. I was raised in Poland. And,
whereabouts?
So I'm originally from Silesia. It's my dog making an appearance right there. Yeah, so it's south and center. We're about 100 kilometers away from Krakow. So it's fairly industrial area, quite developed. It's a collection of medium-sized cities. Yeah, basically I was there up until when I was 19. We have something called matura exam, which is an equivalent of A levels, let's say. I think it just happens a couple of years later than the A levels are done. And then normally people go to university. So I wanted to be an architect, as you do. And then back in 2010 or 2009, when I wanted to study architecture, there were exams. There were still exams to sign up, and the exam was A1 sheet of paper, 3 pencils, 3 hours of time, and draw. And unfortunately, I failed. So yeah, my plan B was to go and study building engineering, which was building next door, literally. So I started that. I never finished first year. It was incredibly boring. I didn't find anything interesting over there. And then in the summer, there was me and my then boyfriend. We had an opportunity to come to London for summer just to enjoy some, travel. See some new world, or see something different out there. And yeah, basically I came over to London, and that summer hasn't come to an end yet for the last 13 years.
So did you study here? So you did your right, okay. So where did you study?
So I did my first degree in product design, funny enough, in Middlesex University. Then I've done my master's in architecture, interiors and design. And then at the time when I was studying, I was working in a construction company, and it was always quite a small company. So the first company I worked for, it was probably about 20 people. There was about 3 of us in the office. It was run by a father and a son. And mainly, I was helping them with pricing, with ordering things, procurement, putting together tender responses and these types of things. Then I was moved over to a site, and I got all the experience from literally being a site-based QS PM person. So I've learned a lot in terms of what it really looks like, what's going on there for sure, for real. And then I changed a company to slightly bigger one. But then over there, it was pretty much just the owner and me. And as much as he was helping in terms of, putting the tender responses, for example, he always had the final say. I was pretty much getting all of the, pricing myself, doing all the takeoffs. I had to kind of self-learn that very, very quickly. And on my own mistakes. So I was probably about 5-6 years into that world when I actually went and did my master's degree in construction project management. So yeah, that's pretty much how I've started, with just hands-on, counting, measuring, scale rulers, and all sorts of stuff. So
are you involved in RICS?
So my degree is accredited. Yes, I've applied for the membership quite some time ago. I had I went through all the whatever you have to have, the skills, and put together the proof in writing of what you've done, what you've achieved. I kind of stepped away from RICS because I was really unhappy with how the whole COVID was handled over there. I think the support that was coming from them to all the other people was really unfair and insufficient. And from an organization like RICS, I would expect something better. And because I work with private clients, the membership with RICS, I don't think it makes much of a difference to me at this point. I do follow the RICS conduct of procedures, and I follow the new rules of measurements, etc., etc. But I just kind of stepped out of the membership because I don't think everything that they're doing for the members in terms of supporting them is what I would expect from an organization as such.
So where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
Well, it's an interesting question because I was talking to somebody last week about it. So I've I mean, in terms of my business journey, I've learned so much working with private people, especially over COVID, who usually the people like you or me, right? They just want to have a home, they want to have a house done to a certain standard, they want to live in it and enjoy it. They don't necessarily understand the construction processes. And I personally do not believe it's the architect's job to start explaining all the nitty-gritty, cost planning and programming and what goes after what. So I've noticed that there is quite a big niche in the market, and there's quite a big need in the market for people like me, combining the QSing and project management for basically private people, for the end users. And what I'm working on right now, funny enough, is creating a franchise model for that. So yeah, rather than building a typical consultancy, I'd love to create something that would help and give people the access to other professionals like I am, with understanding of what they're actually going to get. And at the same time, it's helping people like me 5 years ago get into that industry a little bit quicker and easier.
Well, that's interesting. So we should have a chat about the franchise model as well. Because it's quite an interesting route to go down, and it's got lots of challenges, and I'm sure we can have a chat. Maybe I can help you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I do I do appreciate how much and how much legal and how much understanding goes into the actual franchise model building. So I'm not there yet, but it's a definitely interesting conversation to have. Yes.
So which parts are you thinking of franchising? The QS and construction, the project management.
Yeah, so I'm trying to create almost like a hybrid model for the purpose of projects, say up to £1 million value, where a person doesn't necessarily need a separate QS and a separate PM to carry on with the work. But they could definitely benefit with someone else other than either an interior designer or an architect, just to explain to them the contracting methods, the whole budgeting, cost planning, where's the contingency going, what's going on in the world, how we can save, how we can't save, what's not worth saving on. And then basically from then, once I've got this model built and it can be repeatable, then I'd love to be able to either franchise it or license it or create something. I mean, I was looking into the whole EXP model for the estate agents, right, and how they've created that independent agents, but at the same time with the EXP powered logo and with all the backup and security from that.
What's EXP?
Oh, so estate agents, I think it's a mod. There's quite a few models like that. I think nest seekers have it as well. I know of EXP. I think there's Tyrone Ash as well. There's a couple more, but basically it's for the independent estate agents who who don't want to start from scratch completely as a name. They get all the paperwork, they get all of the information, support and help from organizations like EXP, who puts them together as their own either licensees or franchisees. I'm not too sure how they're being signed up, but yeah.
Very interesting.
So I know.
Have you sort of been to any of the franchise shows or sort of met any of the British Franchise Association?
No, I think there was a couple of meetups. Was it woman in franchising, something like that? So yeah, I went to a couple of meetups with those, and there was quite an interesting conversation from one of the lady lawyers who was explaining, the differences between licensing and franchising, and from a legal and contractual point of view, how it works. Which, yeah, I was terrified. I thought I understand a little bit about law, but that I thought I have no clue what you're talking about. That whole conversation could be in another language and I would understand exactly the same amount. But yeah, basically it's something I'd love to look into, and over the next 5 years I'd love to create something like that, but I'm pretty much at the beginning of that journey.
Oh, sounds very interesting. What's the smallest size project that you do?
What's the smallest? To be fair, it depends, but I usually say it's about 250,000 in value.
Yeah.
And it's purely because, anything below that people probably can't afford, and it financially doesn't make sense to put another person involved in the project.
Yeah, I mean, for us, there's probably a low. No, it would be good to get a QS in at those smaller stages as well, because then the market is enormous.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting because we've actually launched an offer for helping architects, and it was pretty much aimed for the interior designers more than the architects, but basically to help them tender the projects, right? So put together a proper RICS scope of work, including all the elements that you have to go through. So there's no scope gaps, right? So if you follow a template, you can't miss something unexpectedly, in theory. And basically we've made it quite a low price, right? So it's only £5,000, and then basically we put together a pre-qualification questionnaire. We filter through the builders, contractors, etc. We select however many to tender. We send them all the drawings, all the information, all the specifications, etc. And then we put together the comparison of the tender returns. So it makes it very clear and easy to understand who's where in terms of the price, in terms of the program, etc. And to be fair, it's been quite a journey to see as well what's happening in the market, right? Because last year, probably around summertime, it was very hard to get responses from contractors. The market was not interested. It was definitely contractors' market. Right now, we've just finished tendering a week ago, and we've got 5 out of 5 responses. So it tells us.
Wow, that is interesting.
Yeah, so the market is back in the client's hands.
What due diligence do you do on a contractor before you tender or during tender?
So usually we go through all sorts of financial elements. We ask for 3 years accounts, we check the references. If there's some sort of specific element that's required. The project, for example, we're working on right now, the one I just told you about that we finished a week ago, it's going to have the spiral cellar in it.
Yeah.
So, sort of basement experience, any type of, more than the groundworks, but you know what I mean. It's something along these lines would be beneficial. So we usually go through all these questions within the pre-qualification, So if somebody's never done anything like it, they only do lofts, then they're probably not the right contractor anyway. And I usually reach out to between 10 to 15. We assess the responses from early on before they even put any prices on. And from there, we invite to tender only those that we think that would be, that would be a match, to be fair.
How many do you invite? 5?
So on this one, we've invited 5. It's usually between 4 to 8, depending on, like, last year, for example, when the market was really weird and really on the contractor's side, we would go to as many as 8, and then we probably would get 3 to 4 responses. So it very much depends. You kind of can judge from, you know, how quickly and how much detail people go in terms of the pre-qualification response, right? You know how hungry they are for the project, if they're interested, if they're not interested. And then if the amount of responses you get is quite low, then that suggests me that the actual tender responses will be similar. So I'd probably up that a little bit. So we've got a decent range of 3 to 4 quotes as a minimum to choose the one that we're going to go with. Because there's always some people who drop out in the process, right? But
yes. Well, thank you very much, Julia. It's been lovely talking to you. I think we stay on the line and we'll have a chat afterwards, and I'd love to talk to you more about maybe have a chat with our team and talk to you about franchising. There's lots of tangents we can go off in.
Definitely. Well, it was lovely to see you again finally, and yeah, it was lovely to chat.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for joining me, Lisa Raynes, for Architecture in the Den. If you want to find out about franchising, check out our website, prideratefranchise.co.uk. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe and leave a review. And do get in touch through your favourite platform if you'd like to be a guest.